Hello. We have finally finished this project. Resident Evil Team Up Again. It's well known that the storylines for Resident Evil 2 and 3 are supposed to go on at the same time, so I decided to make a project where I could mix them up. And just like the original Team Up project, which focused on Resident Evil 1, I wanted to arrange the gameplay like a coherent story, so all the characters are going off solving parts of the game, but no one solves the same puzzles twice, no one unlocks the same door twice. When it's done, it's done. So narratively, it's a true A-B scenario, as well as the events of Resident Evil 3. And this took so much editing. And now I've finished the project, I thought it'd be fun to show off some of the things I did. So this is the behind the scenes for Resident Evil Team Up Again. So the very first edit I did, I wanted to experiment with Resident Evil character models using Garry's Mod. I wanted to actually create a cutscene, just showing Claire on her bike crashing into the RPD.
No!
So, this is the original Raccoon Police Department from Resident Evil 1.5, and I found a way to import Claire Redfield's character model into this game. And this room was recreated in Garry's Mod as best as I could so I could smash the window and crash the bike. There's no opening cutscene, but there's clues to what has happened. A shutter, we've got a crash bike, so it's up to me to create the opening cutscene. I had a few different ideas. Originally, I was going to have Claire crash her bike and Jill Valentine close the shutters, but I had very little dialogue to work with, and I need reasons for my characters to separate and do their own stories. Somehow, I don't think Jill's just going to abandon a civilian.
Are you okay?
What's going on in this town?
It's been rough. But we can rest now. This way! Hurry!
Right.
Unlike the original game, Claire hasn't met Leon yet, so she hasn't got her gun, so I had to create the item pickup, because in the actual game, it's in the glove box in the opening cutscene, so she's just got the gun. But in my story, she finds it in the police station. I decided I wanted Leon and Claire separated for now, and to diverge the story, because in the actual game, they solve the same puzzles to get different key items. So Claire can find all her key items in the Resident Evil 1.5 sections of the game. So we're not repeating puzzles, and I get to show off all these scrapped locations. And look at this! It's the Hellraiser Cube. Just like the original Team Up project, this is just full of things I edited into the background. 1.5 has a different item screen, so for consistency, I used the main game one, and I had to show every single item being picked up. So once Claire leaves the 1.5 section of the game, the inventory screen has to keep these items. And yes, I know, these are all the boring edits. But everything has to be considered and kept consistent as much as I possibly could. And I needed to link the two games, so Claire could walk from Resident Evil 1.5 into Resident Evil 2. I chose this shutter. It seemed so perfect. Another edit I knew I wanted to do was show off this area before the helicopter crashed. So of course I had to go to Photoshop. I spent ages editing all this together. Again, the whole point of this is to rejig the story. Try and make it a new experience for people that have seen this game 1,000 times before. This would mask out the helicopter. So it looks like this. Perfect. So some things like this are my own little touches, and some things are scrapped ideas from the trial editions of the game. Like this door, for example. In the trial version, this door wasn't here. So like with the helicopter, I would use part of the screen to mask where Claire wasn't walking. Oh god, it's Mr. X, and there's no door there. Let's run.
Sorry about that.
Now, I liked the remakes. I thought the remakes were great, so I decided to have little nods to them. In this case, Kendo has a daughter. Isn't she cute? Sadly, she's going to be eaten by zombies. I remember the first time I played this game was the demo, and you climbed over this thing. Again, it's something that people are less used to seeing. I had to include little things in the background as well, like this poster on the wall of the Merchant, because the Merchant's great. We bypass the basketball court, the bus, and Leon makes his way to the RPD just a little bit quicker, where in a trial edition alternative scene, he meets Marvin.
Who are you? Oh, you must be the new guy. Leon.
Poor Marvin. What happened to him? Well, it was this guy. Brad Vickers. Marvin thought he was a friend, but it turns out he was a zombie. Unfortunately, Marvin got bitten.
Leon, if I die, you have to shoot me in the head. If you don't, I'll become one of them.
We have alternative lines, we've got alternative scenes, like this one, just before we meet the liquor. So Claire wasn't the only one to explore some 1.5 rooms. This is the original meeting room. And again, all this required editing because this is a half-done game. It was never completed, so every single time Leon stands behind something, there's no masks, so Leon's standing on top of it. So I had to go back to Photoshop, crop all the tables and things, and layer it on top. Developing film in the darkroom. Here's a photo of Barry. Nice. Here's another edit I knew I wanted to do from the very beginning. I mean, Leon's a bit of a Boy Scout, but I think he has the sense to bypass puzzles.
How do I do this? I don't understand.
But I think this idea's better. The only thing is, going back to having to consider everything, the hand is now missing the gem, but the puzzle remains unsolved. So every single time the character... Oh, Slender Man. Every single time the character runs past this section, I can't show the gem there, and I can't show the puzzle being solved. I tried to help that along by giving them access to this door, which there's no access to in the main game. And this next edit... What's so annoying to do? Basically, Claire encounters Mr. X on this landing. Leon doesn't. So in my project, Leon is going to encounter Mr. X. I had to recreate the camera angle, Leon moving over a chroma key, and using split screen, I can have Leon doing his side of things, and then, alternatively, I can have Mr. X doing his stuff, and edit them both together. Hopefully it all lines up, though in reality, it was Claire. You lose. Now going back to masking, this is more Resident Evil 1.5 stuff, I had to edit this more interesting record room, so Leon's not walking over the top of all these tables and things. But this is where he picks up the crank! I had an alternative scene where we meet Ada for the first time. This is from the demo of the game. I decided to place the medal in this cupboard, so when Leon picks it up, it'll be like a trigger for the next cutscene.
Hold your fire!
Ada. However, the demo normally cuts off here, so I had to create the next cutscene. This would serve as Ada and Leon's first introduction, with basically the same conversation. And speaking of introductions, we finally have to have Leon meeting Claire.
Did you just see a little girl run by here? About 10 years old?
Yeah, you just missed her. Who is she?
I don't know. But we can't leave her here alone. It's too dangerous. Would you help me look for her?
Of course. But before I forget, here's a radio. That way we can keep in touch if something comes up. My name's Leon.
Claire Redfield.
So here we have Jill Valentine at her house. And when I recorded this, I couldn't figure out how to have classic Resident Evil zombies. Look at those guys. They're modern. That won't do. Now, Jill's apartment here was created in The Sims 4 by a YouTuber called Kerry Plays. It's based on where Jill lives in Resident Evil 3 Remake. And obviously this isn't seen in the original game, so this is so perfect. So a big thank you to Kerry Plays for letting me use a few screenshots. Here's my alternative opening for Resident Evil 3 without the fire and explosions, and here, I decided to have Jill run an alternative way whilst being followed by loads of zombies. At this point, I figured out how to have classic Resident Evil zombies. Here they are, in Gary's mod against a green screen. Again, you had to try and get the camera angle right, because if you don't, it'll all go wrong. So this one looks right. Originally, when I first tried to do this, I got it wrong. And it looks silly. Look how small Jill is there compared to that car behind her. Ugh. Toy Uncle. The pop vinyl of Raccoon City. I included this into the background of certain scenes. A sort of blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. And down here, I have Chucky just sitting into the background for some reason. There he is. And when Jill comes back this way, he's moved. And over here, a Resident Evil in-joke from Dead Rising. There it is, Jill's sandwiches. This is one of my favourite characters from Resident Evil Outbreak, Cindy. But unfortunately, she's dead. For fans of the remake, Moon's Donuts. I decided this should be Moon's Donuts. Weirdly, I noticed when you first walk past it, the lights are off, and when you come back, the lights are on. I've never noticed that before. Weird. In this area, I've edited in some dead zombies. There they are. Decorative dead people. And in Jill's grief, she starts thinking back on her friends and stars. And enemies. People she's lost because of things that happened in the first Resident Evil team-up project. Alright, let's go. And of course...
Jill.
Barry. I like the idea of Barry supporting Jill from beyond the grave, which is why I made this scene. In my video, it wasn't electricity that blasted their heads off, it was Ghost Barry, being awesome even in death. And you see him in the background in occasional scenes throughout the LP. Again, blink and you'll miss it. I spent a lot of time changing all the dialogue as well.
Okay, we've got to get out of here.
We are here to rescue civilians. Follow me.
What? What do you think you're talking about?
Forget about it. Let me guess. This is some of your handiwork, right?
I had to try and find as much dialogue as I possibly could, because the more dialogue I had, the more story options I had. So I decided to have a nice little nod to Regina as a character from Dino Crisis. Making a cameo.
You could have barbecued both of us. Are you crazy?
Yes, I am.
Love it. However, she didn't have much dialogue to work with, so of course I had to kill her. Here she is, she's all dead and stuff. What a shame. And of course, I had to include more references to Resident Evil 2 remake. The orphanage. Just something in the background for people to find. I have the Aquacure girl, a poster for a bit more background colour, and of course, references to the PlayStation 1. Because that was my era, because I'm old. Now, I finally figured out how to have zombies walking around, being zombie-like. And my god, they're difficult to direct. Look at them. But you know what they say, never work with children, animals, or zombies. But I knew, at this point of the game, I was going to leave the main hall and never come back, so I wanted to create a big scene. I wanted all the zombies to invade the main hall. And it was amazing. I had ones from Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and Leon was going to be in trouble. He'd have to make a hasty exit to avoid being munched on. So here's how it turned out. I had all these zombies waiting outside the front doors. Leon would walk past, and then they'll smash open the door. Oh no! All the zombies. And Leon could use his machine gun. So once again, this scene was done using Gary's mod, all against a green screen. It was really difficult to line this bit up as well. I wish I made the characters a bit bigger here. You get this angle of the skylight, and I wanted Nemesis to come smashing through that window. You even get a Chimera from Resident Evil 1. I decided to have the zombies all gathering around downstairs as well, with a Nemesis closely following behind them. Well, he's actually just standing still. Come on, Nemesis, move. That's better. I had some scenes where I wanted to include certain key items in convenient places to make my story happen. Also, this scene. I thought it would be funny to have Leon very preoccupied with his inventory management. And we can see him just standing there whilst he's doing it. The box had to remain open, and he's so focused that he doesn't even realise that Claire's come in.
Leon!
And rudely, he's just completely ignoring her. He's in his own little world, so Claire just thinks, screw it, and walks off. She's got better things to do, like blowing things up. And it takes a massive explosion to stop Leon from doing what he's doing.
Leon, come in. I cleared the wreckage that was blocking the corridor.
This is a great scene from Resident Evil 3, but in my project, it doesn't happen. But it does happen with Claire. I had to edit all this together, took me ages. But I think it turned out quite well. So once again, he's following Jill. So in my project, he had to follow Claire. One thing I really wanted to do was to have Brian Irons and show him going on his little rampage. And I included the original Claire.
I'm going to take you with me.
Elsa Walker. She does not want to be around Brian Irons.
I was told to look after her, but I failed miserably. Just look at her.
So Brian is a bit crazy. And in my project, he's kidnapped Elsa.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
Instead of the mayor's daughter, we've got Elsa Walker, dead on Brian's desk. And I had to go to Photoshop and basically edit her into the screen. And do the same with every single camera angle. This took forever to make. And once again, the white sections of the screen are going to be windows showing the original game footage underneath so you can see the characters moving around. Sadly, I didn't have access to Elsa Walker in Garry's Mod, so I just had to take a decent quality picture and manipulate it in a photo editor as best as I possibly could. Another fun thing I did with this project was try to find new dialogue for the characters. Brian Irons' actor actually did a reading of one of the files we find, so I included that. And then I spent a crazy amount of time searching through their other credits for more voice lines.
With the delays in police actions, no one will have the chance to escape my city alive. I've seen to it personally that all escape routes from inside the precinct have been cut off as well.
Is everything all right? It sounds like you girls have had quite a night. But don't worry, you see?
I'm afraid of great loud noises, so sometimes when nobody is looking, I wear my earmuffs.
Yes, I know, that was silly, but don't worry, we're going more sensible now. It's Tofu, making a cameo. And again, I'm replacing various rooms with the 1.5 rooms. I like all the 1.5 zombies. They're the first ones I ever saw in the magazines when Resident Evil 2 was first sneak peeked, before they was all scrapped. And now I get to include them all back again. This room's very similar to the final version, but I do like that in this version, the zombies can climb up and climb off things. I don't really know why they did away with all that stuff. Oh god, run! But it's not all about going back in time. Here we have a guy from Leon's future, Murchie, who I think we can all agree is great. Here he is, hanging out in the armory, and he's given us a machine gun. And a side pack. We're not quite ready for attaché cases yet. Again, I'm surprised how well he integrated into Resident Evil 2. Who is the Merchant? Did Barry Burton come back from the dead? Is it Harry Mason? I don't know. All I know is that he is a hero. Here's some Leon voice lines.
What's going on? I will kill this monster, and that will be the end of it. That's a risk I will gladly take. I am Theseus, Prince of Athens. Then why don't you leave him?
You're right.
Isn't that the idea? I must try again. What about the others? I rode a dolphin when I was a boy. Can't be much harder than that. Well, it's going to end right now.
Yeah, some of those might have been a bit out of place. Most of these 90s cartoons had loads of music going on. It was hard to salvage dialogue. But at least Ada doesn't try and shoot Leon in the car park.
Here.
Ada?
I'm looking for some guy named Ben. He's one of those reporter types.
Now, going back to Brian Irons. He's completely unhinged. It's heavily implied he wants to make his victims into taxidermy projects. But you never see it, not even in the remake. So I did it. Brian Irons' little room of torture is now filled with victims. Taxidermy projects that he's posed. Some of them are concealed under sheets. So I had to go looking for pictures of people hiding under sheets. I didn't want them to look like ghosts. I wanted them to look like people being posed. And I also tried to make them look slightly low res, so they worked with the backgrounds. Weirdly, I think of all the characters I wanted to do something with, it was Brian Irons I found the most interesting. To show some of the creepy things he's been up to. He's moved Elsa down here. He's been trying to chop off her leg. Poor Elsa. Ah well, I suppose she wasn't using it. I also wanted to make another interesting transition from the actual game to 1.5. Here we go. So William falls down from Resident Evil 2 right into Resident Evil 1.5. We have a second boss battle with Leon. I was quite proud of that one. In my story, I tried to make Ada a bit more sympathetic. Leon gets shot, trying to protect her, and she just buggers off.
Ada?
Leaving Leon to have to get up and go and find her. So I made her go back and patch him up. In character, she still puts her mission first, but she didn't just abandon him, bleeding to death, which I'm sure he appreciates. Claire is terrible looking after children. I mean, what's she looking at? Of course, I had to add in the little crickets.
Claire!
What? More 1.5 stuff. This is an interesting environment. Originally, it looked like this. I recolored it. But also, once again, nothing's been masked, so I had to cut out this section of the platform and place it over the original video. I actually think the game looks quite good with these darker colours. A bit more realistic and creepy. I still wanted the game to link up to the main game, so I had to add a few background details like grates. So Sherry can go through this grate and end up at this scene in the main game. I also wanted to have this scene where Claire encounters Ada. Poor Sherry's fallen into the rubbish, we've got Ada shooting at something in the water. I had to strategically mask Ada in, moving it slightly every single time something moved in front of her. It's fidgety, but it works. And typical Ada, she's not sticking around. This is where Leon is supposed to be standing. But without him, it looks like Ada's turned tail to get out of there because there's a massive alligator. And here we introduce Hunk. This whole area of Resident Evil 3 is normally on fire, so you can't normally run here, but what interests me is the shop in the background saying Amiset, because if we remember, that's from Resident Evil 2. An interesting link. So, back with Gary's mod, I'm masking everything very carefully around all the cars and stuff, trying to get Hunk running around this corner, just so I could show Hunk running from Resident Evil 3 right into Resident Evil 2. So we have the Amiset building, and there it is in Resident Evil 2. I thought it would be an interesting introduction to Hunk's scenario, going from Resident Evil 3 into the A scenario, introduction, into the B scenario, introduction, and then walking to a sewer manhole, which leads straight into Hunk scenario. Here's Jill phasing through some banisters. That won't do, so I had to create more masks. Do you have any idea how tedious all this was? Very. But at the end of the day, it's all about results. I wanted Jill to walk into the lab area of Resident Evil 2 to link them up more. It would be an excuse to show off more areas from Resident Evil 1.5 we don't normally get to see, as well as give Jill a small part in the story. So she's there when the whole facility starts sparking with electricity, and the self-destruct mechanism is activated. So she has to run. I decided to have certain key items you'd normally find in Resident Evil 3 here in the lab, so it kind of gives her a reason to be here. I tried to avoid necessarily having her interfere with the events, and she has her own story. I wanted Jill to see an experimentation room with this guy, or alternatively this guy? No, we'll go with this guy. From Resident Evil Revelations. I like that game, and I like having nods to games I like this bobblehead from Fallout. And over here we've got, from Portal, Aperture. I had to make a few edits to the walls here, for consistency, because in my story, Ada gets hurt afterwards. Well, Ada's dead.
Ada!
Another thing I wanted to do from the very start of this project was a gag to do with the 2 fingerprints. You need 2 characters, but why? So Leon does them both. And now we need just 1 more fingerprint. And it just so happens that I have more than 1 finger. What a stupid system. They didn't think about that, did they?
I discovered this when I did a background check on her.
And of course, this little joke about the background check, which turns out to be a Wikipedia search. If you're going to be a super secret spy, don't have this information on Wikipedia. In hindsight, I should have used Google Beta. This is 1998, and Wikipedia didn't even exist. Not for another 3 years. To be honest, I don't think anyone watching my LPs is going to care about that level of detail. And if they do, they have not taken the time to complain yet. But they should. I expect historical realism in my Let's Plays. And all I can say is, I'm sorry.
We can hear gunshots.
I also had lots and lots of fun with the music of this game. I have all these Resident Evil soundtracks at my disposal. I can make the sad scenes sadder, or the dramatic scenes more dramatic.
The self-destruct sequence has been activated.
Nice. So Hunk has returned. The butt of another joke.
William is still alive. He's getting stronger with each skin he casts off.
I noticed that when the self-destruct mechanism started, all the shutters started coming down. And poor Hunk can't escape. He's completed his mission, he has the G-Virus. He just needs to get out of here. But, unfortunately for Hunk, all the shutters are down. The building is about to explode, and he has no choice but to admit he has failed the mission and to just stand around waiting to be blown up. But he's not gonna let some stupid self-destruct kill him. He's Hunk. If he's gonna go, he's gonna do it himself. Properly. Perfect. And of course, the closed shutter had to be edited in. I'm going to finish up by showing off the last edit of the entire project. I thought everything was finished, but then I had an idea and had to rearrange every single scene, just so I can include this one. Before leaving the facility, Jill picks up a rocket launcher, and whilst battling the tyrant, a woman from the shadows throws Leon a rocket launcher. So much for not interfering with the events of Resident Evil 2.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
So there we have it. It was nice to make a little showcase for all the time put into this project, but it was so much fun. I still get the same kick out of these games as I did when I was 7 years old. So thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.